How many come here looking for knowledge? How many come here looking for peace? Those who come looking for peace, why aren't you feeling peace? Is it just the nature of your lives, your jobs, your circumstances that put you in a electric, noisy environment? Or are you wired for anxiety? Where you have a threshold of tolerable external factors. And once that's exceeded, you become a mess. I'll tell you, I never figured out why I was coming to teachers. It just, I just figured everyone should be doing it, expanding your horizons, seeing if there's an absolute truth, seeing if there's some way to escape death. And one by one, all the people I knew died. I'm among the oldest now. And I know why I come to satsang. And I'm not going to tell you either. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's a good practice for you to understand why you come to satsang. My God, from the time I was in college till now, well, maybe not now, a few years ago, I was always searching, almost frantically searching, going to guru after guru, reading book after book. Then the gurus started coming to the United States back in the 60s. I think it reached a crescendo around the 80s. By the time 2000 rolled around, we had a Manhattan telephone book amount of gurus in the United States and around the world, traveling, teaching. By the time the 80s rolled around, when I went to see a teacher, I was almost always disappointed with the new ones that I saw, not because they were worse, but they more or less all taught the same thing. And I hadn't found that same thing addressed my needs for a special kind of certainty. So now I really don't give a shit about spiritual knowledge or ordinary sentience knowledge. It's not my problem anymore. My problem back then was to find some kind of certainty. I don't know why I wanted certainty, but I did. And I knew I couldn't find certainty in concepts or spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge was a phony thing to me. Teachers talked about things they couldn't possibly know for certain and seemed to be selling it to all who came to them for whatever reasons they came to them. And my God, they all judged each other. Some refused to talk about other teachers, but mostly, publicly at least, they didn't think much about other teachers, only their tradition. I have a friend, Shankarananda. Shankarananda went and stayed with Muktananda and became what the hell do you call it? A monk there, one of 132. For Shankarananda, every guru but Muktananda was a fake. Frank, you're back. I had 9 years of college in order to get a doctorate in economics. And what I began suspecting all along was that knowledge was useless. It was made up of hypotheses and questions and answers. And the spiritual stuff talked about things you couldn't measure. Enlightenment, spirituality, love. And you go to the lectures of the teachers of the time, and at least for me, I wondered, what the fuck are they talking about? They, they were talking about Eric's cat. All those terms that they used, whatever categories and terms were used in their spirituality, seemed to me to be empty and irrelevant. Knowledge itself seemed empty and irrelevant. Somewhere along the line, I realized that knowledge was not a savior. It was a burden. The more you know, the more fucked you are. Thinkers are always carrying a cross for one thing or another. But none of this stuff is important compared with just living and being able to feel yourself and to express what's going on in you. But all the talk about God and the divine seemed pointless until one day I discovered the divine, and I don't know how it happened or why it happened. There was no rhyme or reason. And when I use the term God, I'm not actually thinking of any particular entity or set of characteristics either. I'm speaking about the feeling of divinity within one's own self after you've attained pretty good sitting meditation, pretty good stillness. And over the years, I found out there was something I valued a lot more than the teachings, which was the emptiness I encountered in meditation, the nothingness. My God, how good it feels to finally have no goals, nothing to struggle for, nothing to fight for, that it's all just concepts and words. And the important thing is to be able to know yourself without words, without concepts. And it feels different than when I first started spirituality. When I first started, I had all kinds of ideas, mainly out of reading early books on spirituality, like Yogananda and the others. But gradually I learned These teachers were trying to teach something, but words were not the proper means for teaching. Understanding is not where it's at. That where it's at is the experience of nothingness. It evaporates all words, all concepts, all meaning. In fact, everything about being a human. And at first, for the first few years, I avoided it. There seemed to be no safety in no concepts. But somewhere along the right way, I realized that complete emptiness, leaving you with nothing to do or even to experience, was an extremely blissful experience in a certain way. The quietness and the stillness of no words, no concepts. Was a lot like just resting at the beach, looking at the horizon. Nothing the fuck to do. Just be. Just to be. Not to think. Not to laugh. Not to do anything. Not to write a book or lead a satsang. But nothing to do. At first, it was horrifying. They have nothing to do. No direction. No reach. No understanding. But now I prize that the most because it also leaves me open to the experience of death, the ultimate liberator. I know. We all fight to stay alive and to keep consciousness going. But there are 8 or 9 billion of us in the world now. I think that's too many. So a plague will come along, kill a billion or two, and the population might adjust to a more reasonable level. But boy, wouldn't that go down in history? Great plague or the Great War, whatever it was that killed a billion people. And we'd be talking about that for another 5 generations, how to avoid it happening again or something. In the world, there's always a lot to do. Study for tests that you don't want to take because that's the only way to graduate with a title or to get a job. I remember when I was young, it was very easy to get a job, even the good ones. But once you pack past maybe 45 or something like that, employers are not so hot on buying your services. And I think after a panic about being in this situation over the years, I got to love doing nothing. All the muscles in my body relaxed. I could sit still for hours in the stiff style of Zen meditation. No thoughts would come. Just having an open consciousness, aware of the periphery around us and how the world around me impressed itself on my sensory apparatus in various ways, so that I became aware of the external world and of also myself. But looking inside, I never could find a self that had a location. Instead, I found exquisite peace in the stillness, but there was no location. It wasn't in me or about me in any way. It wasn't above or below me. It Location was not part of the experience. The experience of meditation in emptiness gradually just became an experience of peace and rest, which I fought because I figured, what the hell is happening here? There seems to be nothing happening. But there was. I was losing trust in knowledge. I was losing trust in education and even spirituality and even spiritual teachers. I knew a lot of the teachers pretty well, and I saw nothing there that I found very attractive. They had traded, in my eyes, a true spirituality by adopting identity within a movement. They adopted Yogananda, for example, or Muktananda, or any other Anandas, adopted their teachings and began teaching it, usually very seriously at first. But the words no longer soothed me in any way. The concepts of God or no God, of emptiness or fullness, of truth or falsity, all these things had a tendency to fuck me up rather than free me from anything. I was learning concepts of emptiness, God, meditation. And instead, now, I don't use words like that. What I've attained is a kind of very powerful inner happiness and joy that cannot be shaken anymore. I keep watching for some sign that it's failing. But then I stop looking because nothing's happening. And after a while, I came to the concept nothing's happening. None of that spiritual stuff is happening. Nor is anything that the worldly people talk about happening. It just doesn't touch me. So for me, it doesn't exist. What exists for me is a feeling of vast emptiness, pervading the entire world. So even when I can watch the world happening around me and all of its activities and fury, none of it touches me. Not the slightest bit interested in it. Nor am I interested in techniques of meditation. The proper forms of meditation or sitting correctly in meditation. Because I can go into emptiness at any time now with very little struggle. I just turn it off. And I can rest in nothingness and emptiness and feel a kind of joy inside of me that was always there, but I didn't know it before. I didn't feel it before. And I guess it's the joy of beingness, the joy of being alive. It's always there. Throughout my whole body, I could feel it. To just sit like this and feel my existence is a revelation. My body feels like a tank of joy, not of doing, but of being. I am really happiest when I'm doing nothing. When nobody seems to want me. with nobody calling me, having nothing to do except be myself. And this stillness is amazing in its intensity. Nothing moves. Even while my lips move and sound comes out, it's all coming out of emptiness. There's no longer a library within me and a categorization of concepts and terms and tools. I just am, with nothing to do and nowhere to go. I'm at peace. Something I had known for a long, long, long time. Even though I practiced meditation, I practiced emptiness, still there was a fury inside of me wanting to do something all the time. But that fury stopped after I realized how blissful doing and being nothing was. And I saw how human history, human existence, is almost always a running from death, the concept of death, the experience of death. But I don't need that anymore. If you're still, like now, can you go inside and find out where the residual pains are within you, within your body? Until about 5 or 6 years ago, I always had a tension in my neck and trapezius muscles. Always. And then one day it seemed to disappear and I couldn't find it anymore, even looking for it. My constant practice of sitting in emptiness and quietness somehow, at some time, seemed to turn the switch of busyness off in me. I no longer felt driven to do things. Not doing became my goal. And all of doing and beingness or doingness tired me out. But doing nothing gradually was making me feel more and more wonderful. And I had practiced meditation for over 40 years or 50 years before that. So, how do I tell people? Meditate for 50 years and you'll feel fine. But what about the years 1 to 48? Are you going to find those tiresome and bothersome years? Or can you learn to relax in the midst of the struggle so that you can totally feel your body? Because when your mind shuts off and isn't tempted to start by considering some concepts or ideas or thinking about something, the rest that comes to you is like something you've never known before. It's a peace that settles inside. And it's always there. I feel it throughout my body. That tension in my neck and shoulders just totally disappeared a few years ago. Now I only feel tension when I have to do things that are relatively energetic, and I avoid doing those all the time because I'm in love with the feeling of peace, bliss, that non-activity, both physical and mental, allows to arise in me. I am nothing. I seek nothing. Everything just comes to me, unsought. And I can pick it up or ignore it. Chris, what do you think about what I just said? Boy, he doesn't want to come back. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I have nothing to add to what you said. It captures perfectly what I'm feeling, especially right now.
What do you feel right now?
Exactly what you were describing, strong peace that is immovable, that is deep and enduring and continuous and effortless. And the spaciousness I've talked about a lot. The energies are there, but also the emptiness. And it's pretty much exactly what you said. And I feel it especially strong right now too. So thank you, Edge.
10 years ago, would you have imagined this state and how restful it is?
I experienced it, but it was always like rare and intermittent. It was like I would go into meditation for 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'd be there for 5 or 10 minutes, and then it would evaporate afterward. shortly afterward, and the yo-yoing back and forth was something I figured was just part of the deal, like it was not, but I just kept going. I kept going with your encouragement, and the strength of it, the immovability of it, the permanence of it was something that I aspired to, but I didn't know if I could achieve it. So, yeah. Even
Are you
2 years ago, even 2 years ago, I was going back and forth. 2.5 years ago.
you should be a teacher.
Well, I thank you, but I've determined that my teaching skills are not the greatest, but I do what I can already, Edgy. But thank you
I
for that.
figured you did,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to give you a larger permission.
Okay. Appreciate it.
How many are torn between feeling peace and still experiencing internal need to do, become, understand? The extreme value of being nobody, and yet being aware that you're a nobody. Nobody's coming after your understanding. Nobody's trying to steal whatever truths you have. And somebody comes to you looking for truth, there's not much you can do except sit and do nothing and let them struggle with that you didn't answer them explicitly in words, but instead we're just silent. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. But the sheer pleasure I feel, and the joy that's not joy in a common sense way, but it's joy and it's bliss in its own way, but it's not what I would have thought of bliss 10 years ago. It's just that in the barrenness of the silence, a deep peace grabs my whole body and my whole mind. And I sit free of all desires to improve, to find something true, false. I have nothing to do. Now, I have to think, how many people would be interested in receiving this gift if I told them there was nothing there? Go ahead, steal it. I welcome you. Steal it. Steal the nothingness. It's a kind of steady state happiness, and even more than happiness, a kind of joy that permeates my entire experience. I feel my body. I see the lights through my eyelids, and all is well. My body feels so relaxed, and it has every particle in it, it seems to be. Eagerly feeling at peace. So my body is joy, is peace. And my main practice for the years leading up to that was to feel my body, and where there was pain or a permanent kind of contraction, I would seek to melt it out, to relax those muscles and fibers. And gradually I learned to come into the emptiness in a relatively short period of time and to stay there. And to feel the joy of having nothing to do, nowhere to go. I don't have to do anything. There's so much joy in having nothing to do and nowhere to go. And I toss this out even. And I share my quietude, which is not a word, with you. I used to put more teachings in it because I didn't know any better. But there's a kind of teachings inside complete silence and not wanting. That is incredibly fulfilling. And leaves my body like a wet noodle that's still standing tall. I feel joy all the time. and it doesn't have the kind of intensity that would force my attention on it. An orgasm forces it imposes itself on your awakeness. But now just my stillness imposes kind of peace onto my stillness, my sentience. No words, no understanding, no truth really, except to shut the fuck up and be aware. I'll take questions now from anybody miserable enough to ask them.
Hi, Edgy.
Hi.
I'll volunteer to be miserable today for us.
Okay.
I've had a question for a bit. Um, Kind of in light of what we've been talking about, dropping concepts and becoming dumb as a rock, etc. Something that Robert used to say a lot that has me curious. In his satsangs, he would often give his talk, and then at some point he would use the phrase, you need to think about these things intelligently. He would say that a lot. And I'm just kind of wondering if you had any insight into what he meant, because it seemed to kind of contradict, the idea of dropping all concepts when he's telling you to contemplate a lot about his teachings or what he's saying.
Well, yeah, it's a kind of enigma. But the more you fuck around with the concepts of just beingness, the more it approaches you as a place of living. You hear about beingness. You hear about going deep. You hear so many things from so many different places, so many different voices, all of them telling you, practice this way, practice this way. But if you persist, even the kind of activity that opposes peace will give way to just experiencing your beingness and your being useless at the same time. Uselessness pumps up the beingness. You're not thinking about the future, or you're not thinking about how to do something. Instead, you're experiencing yourself in silence. You're experiencing your muscle tension in various places in your body, how it affects your posture. And that you really don't care because you're not pumped up anymore. It's a little like being deflated, but in a very good way because you've lost all the drivingness to do something, to understand something, to become a master of it. You're okay with being called an asshole or a dummy, especially the dummy. Dummy's a good one. Because you're not part of them anymore. You're not a part of normal human experience. Because by now, you are aware of the divinity that lies within you all the time. It rises from your belly into your chest and up into the neck and your head. You feel it in your shoulders and your back. And then later on, it spreads to your butt if you imagine it to. And you just feel good. Maybe you can even attach the term happiness to what you're feeling. You feel your own existence. There's not much that can disturb you when you rest in your own happiness. Imagine, this probably holds true for most of you. The days when there's nothing to do, do you avoid them? Because when there's nothing to do, you may feel trapped. But for me, when there's nothing to do, it means I can rest a little longer inside my own happiness and silence. And I look within, I feel that happiness within. The happiness that accompanies not doing, with just resting, is a new feeling that replaces the old one. constantly doing, growing, incorporating more and more concepts and knowledge of how to do into my personality day by day. Instead, I throw away concepts day by day till there are no concepts left. And I just talk about the happiness of just being, not doing, just being. And you can have it too. It took me a long, long time because I have a very busy mind.
Edgy, your first question intrigued me, whether I was seeking knowledge or peace. And for a moment, my consternation was that I couldn't find peace because I didn't have the knowledge. And then I just realized that it was all bullshit. And I just put it down, and you built an edifice of nothingness, of absolute pure grace. And it is so powerful. And within that, my only question, when you said it's very easy for you to go into emptiness, is that like you described one time that your brain kind of freezes and there's no thoughts, or maybe thoughts per se are supplanted by a grace or bliss?
I think that's one way of putting it. The feeling of peace I get from doing nothing has replaced all the other platforms of the center of my existence. So, oh, a cat's tail. I love it. Eric's cat is.
That's cute. Edgy, that was exquisite, and I really find it easier to go dumb as a rock, to have nothing to do and nowhere to go, and it seems to be a place that I can't get to fast enough, and it really gets more exquisite every time.
Yes, it does.
Maybe I'm getting better at this, although you can't quantify it necessarily, but in a way, I mean, as I said, this isn't a sprint. This is, however many incarnations. I still read Robert Adams. I still read your book. What is it? Self-awareness and Other Awakenings, something along those.
I don't remember.
Self-realization and Other Awakenings. But
Okay.
because why you are so beloved to me is, as I said more than once, that you distilled some of the essence of some of the greatest sages of the 20th century with whom you are among, and then you brought it back to us in grace in a way that's just so simple and yet so explosive. It's just, you take my breath away. I can't tell you enough, and I love you so much.
Is that why you have the dark glasses on? You're blinded by my light?
I kind of thought they were kind of cool. I grew up in smoke and mirrors in Hollywood, and I figured if I have to look at myself in the Satsang motel here, I get to have a moment where there's nobody home, but I get off on it a little. Well, whatever. Sorry, I'll get in trouble. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have a question. I realized just yesterday how closely linked the fear of non-doing is linked with the fear of dying. In other words, something in me is afraid that if I don't keep doing, and it's not a decision, it seems to be, instinct, that if I stop doing, if I stop that way of seeing life and being, then I'll die.
I understand that completely. The drive to do is very strong in all Americans. We're used to conquering the world. It becomes built in for us to get in and fight for the sake of fighting, to progress, to grow. And instead, at a certain point in life, you can't grow anymore. You've stretched all those boundaries till they can't be stretched anymore. And the only way you can go is towards silence and emptiness, the complete opposite of what's driven you in your life up to this point. I think we tend to burn out as we age from doing. And when we burn out from doing, we find out how wonderful not doing feels. It's about feeling, not understanding, and how to get yourself to feel peace and love and rest and emptiness and nothingness. It's the complete opposite of our so-called birthright of endless struggle to grow and to exceed and to build. Now every day I look for ways to simplify my life. Luckily, I have a companion that more or less keeps the house going, assigns me tasks from time to time. In any way, does that answer your question? How do you feel now?
It does. It does. And you're kind of the living proof that we don't die by, doing nothing. So just by the way you live, you say it, you prove it.
Yes.
You're a living example of it.
Yes. And the thing that nobody believes is stop doing what you're doing, and you'll find peace inside of yourself that never leaves you, as long as you're not doing anything. But as soon as intention guides your actions, you're doing something with intent, your whole beingness grabs that intent, and you can't feel the deep peace that well anymore. It robs you. The intention robs you of being attentionless. Intentionless, not attentionless. Bernadette, how do you feel?
Oh. Uh, well, I don't trust knowledge anymore either. I don't seek to know anything. I keep coming back to what I value most is just resting in myself, like you talk about. It seems like it's always there to go back to just rest in this. It's like I feel like a heaviness, but a really nice heaviness, like really, it just feels so good to just stay there, and I'm happy there and peaceful and very, very content. And I can contrast it. If I do go out and feel like I have to do something, I just want to go back. So yeah, it feels really, really good. And sometimes it gets more intense and other things happen, but basically it's just this. I feel like I live now from this still centered place. And if I go out, I want to go back. So I feel good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate where you are too. Lawrence, tell me about you.
Maybe I can say what I felt during the meditation. I was feeling you, basically. And your voice is everywhere. And in the center of me, I listen, I feel my heart beating. Like a muscle, it's not even, I feel the muscle beating. It's overwhelming. And I realize I have a belief very deep that that I cannot be myself, that it depends on something external who seems to appear, disappear, to be here, not to be. I just realized that now. Sometime after being in the satsang with you, the same evening or the day before, I feel you. And then I realize also, I say, I'm not feeling you, I'm feeling myself. And there is something,
Yes,
yes,
that's a nice place to be. Place of discovery. Well, all of you enjoy yourself. And you can do that best by doing nothing. And that's such a hard thing to learn because we're trained to do something at all times, that when we do nothing, we're dying, we're losing, we're disappearing. Yeah, we are, but it's so fucking enjoyable. Take care. Enjoy being yourself. Enjoy feeling yourself, feeling your emptiness, and feel the energy within, the energy of beingness that pervades your body and your mind and takes you away to a different world altogether. Bye-bye.